I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what SE2 and Global Atlantic is before we get started. SE2 is actually an Eldridge Industry BPO TPA. We actually provide the business process as a service for US life and annuity insurance. We are the top out there. SE2 has a platform called the Aurum platform, and part of that, it is a digital end-to-end digital life and annuity platform. We have built our API services on Mulesoft, and for more information, you can log on to SE2.com. Doug, over to you for.
My name is Doug Lotz. I am Senior Vice President at Global Atlantic, and we are the largest and fastest and growing annuity and life insurance carrier in the United States. We'll do about between $9 and $10 billion in new business premium this year. And how many of you know what an annuity is? Raise your hand. Not many people. So annuity is a retirement product that people use, and I'll talk a little bit about that retirement product in a bit, especially as it relates to our two customers, Walter and Jane, and so we'll get into that in a minute. But in addition, I always start these things off with some things that I'm thankful for, a little bit of gratitude. So three things. Number one, I'm thankful to all of you for showing up here tonight to listen to me. I'm sure Indra will be worth every minute. I'm not so sure about myself. Second thing is if you notice me or know me at all, you'll know I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, which is flyover country. Many of you have probably never been there. But I taught at the University of Iowa for 6 years, and not once in that 6 years did they let me drink a beer while I was presenting. So thank you for that. Thank you to Mulesoft. Number three, I'm thankful to SE2 for being a great partner and collaborating through this process. We believe what we've built here is industry leading. We believe that it is driving a lot of transparency, and you'll hear me talk a little bit about how we've tried to enable the insurance ecosystem through this. And so I'm really excited to present about this. It's something we've been working on for about a year at least. It's been on our backlog for a year and a half. So to have this thing live and running and doing really well is very, very fun. So.
Thank you, Doug, for that. And insurance, people typically think insurance to be a old monster. Well, it is and it is not. Fun fact on that is insurance was actually the first to get into technology, but in between the 80s and 90s, they got stuck somewhere with the mainframe and such. But now things are changing, and that's what we're going to see over here. So, if you want to,
I think insurance was a very early adopter into technology, and due to the regulatory complexity, as well as the long life contracts. So we sign a contract for a life insurance policy or retirement insurance policy. Those contracts run 40 years. So they are very long lived, which is part of the reason why it was difficult to evolve this ecosystem. A lot of people think of insurance as old technology. It is, but we're moving out of that. And we're doing so in partnership with folks like Indra and SE2.
So Doug, why don't you talk about a little bit of the challenges that you have on the customer service side, specifically given the fact that there are agents and customers who are more, nowadays they want everything real time and personalized.
Well, how many of you have a retirement advisor? Somebody you talk to work with your money, a bunch of you do. What happens with these retirement advisors, a lot of them are independent, where they work for large firms like Wells Fargo or Morgan Stanley or whatever. These retirement advisors can sell we're an insurance carrier, they can sell any carrier's product. And so what we have to do is be able to enable our ecosystem to any advisor. They don't want to use Global Atlantic software, they don't want to use SE2 software. What they want to use is their own software, and they want our data. So as we think about the problem that's happening in insurance that has been pervasive for the last 25 years is a couple of things. It's data fragmentation. So you can buy an insurance product from us, you can buy it from 15 other carriers, Prudential, MetLife, whoever. The second thing that's happening is these old systems. They don't transmit data very well. So we had to try to get to a more modern platform. SE2's platform provided that for us. And then to enable the ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier, they don't want to use, these advisors, these third-party advisors, don't want to use our software, they want to use their own. So the data becomes the key enabler for the ecosystem. Once you've done that, that sort of greases the skids to allow the sales to happen. Part of the other piece is customers also don't want to talk to Global Atlantic. They want to talk to their local advisor, right? So you have somebody that you've trusted your retirement into, you want to call up that person and you want to ask, where's my annuity contract? So we have, I mentioned, Walter and Jane before. Walter's a plumber. He's worked 40 years of his life. Jane is a teacher, school teacher. She taught 3rd grade in North Carolina, let's make it, right? They've saved $1 million. One of the things that doesn't exist as much anymore are pension plans. So their retirement advisor said, let's take $500,000 of your $1 million in retirement savings and invest it in a retirement annuity. That way you're guaranteed to never outlive this income payment stream, right? Everybody understand that? So what happens with Walter and Jane, and the problem with the system is they hand over $500,000 to their advisor, and their advisor sends it into a carrier. And what happens? Everything goes silent. They don't know what stage it's in. They don't know that we got the money. They don't know what happened to their $500,000. So imagine you're Walter and Jane and you're 60 years old, you're getting ready for retirement and you just sent off half of your life savings and you don't know where it's at. This, to us, was a huge competitive opportunity. So what we tried to do is enable transparency into the business process, using SE2's platforms, using the Mulesoft software to enable that ecosystem.
And the Salesforce component. So this, by the way, is a very simplified view of actually what happens. As you can see over here, the agents, the one that Doug was mentioning, actually call in for info servicing into SE2, but for the new business component, they call the Global Atlantic's sales support group. Similarly, the customer, if they are actually doing something on the info side, they make a call into SE2, and otherwise they will call either the agent or the sales support. But how does this work? Salesforce is a great solution out there for the sales support, but the data in that Salesforce is dependent on what data is actually provided from SE2 and the other ecosystem. Typically, the challenges that we see here is there are disparate platforms. There are a lot of across the different divisions and organizations. There's a high case volume and there's a lot of hold time. As Doug was mentioning, this hold time is typically because nobody knows where the data is exactly, and there's no real way to get to the data. So that's what's going to change when we started using MuleSoft, and a little bit on that.
So what would happen here is Jane and Walter would call their advisor many times and say, "Where's my $500,000?" And their advisor would say, "Let me call Global Atlantic and find out." And then we'd have to call SE2, because SE2 is our third-party platform administrator. So you can see how fragmentation of the data and the ecosystem, how we needed to sort of stitch that together in a way that allowed transparency across the entire process, from this agent to SE2 and back. And we're working right now on this customer, exposing it exactly to the end user.
So this sort of gives a little bit of overview of what were the different challenges. So why don't you go on that one first?
So again, Walter and Jane's agent says, you got $1 million saved for retirement. I think you should invest that money into an annuity to make sure that you have a guaranteed paycheck every month for the rest of your life. They give that money, $500,000, to their agent, their broker, their advisor. What would happen is their advisor would submit that money to us, our sales desk, but we call these things cases when they come in the door. Walter and Jane have a case. We would send it in to our own processing agents and then to SE2 to get put on the system. However, the status of the cases would disappear. Highly regulatory environment. If we're missing a signature on page 4 of the contract, or some initials, or some other piece of key information, it goes into a status called not in good order. And when it's not in good order, we're bound to not legally book that contract until we get that data back from the customer. So Walter and Jane's contract's in, they've wrote the check for $500,000, it goes in not in good order status, and all of a sudden they're freaking out going, what happened to my $500,000? So this fragmentation across the ecosystem was what we were trying to fix. When we started working on this together, Global Atlantic was already using Salesforce. It was our sales tool of choice, but we were using it in a very tactical fashion as a traditional CRM. We said, wait a minute. SE2's our third-party administrator for our policy admin. They have this Mulesoft platform all ready to go. Let's hook this thing up to Salesforce. Makes sense, right? Salesforce then becomes our complete solution for all of our operational, so our service and sales desktops, so that the salespeople know exactly what's happening at the same time the SE2 folks as our operations folks. And so to build the ecosystem was what our goal was.
And if you see over here, the deep blue lines over here, these are the ones that are actually manual processes. Anything that you see as the light blue or the red are the systemic processes which are existing. So this is where we started the journey. But as we moved on, we basically created the integration message bus with Mulesoft. We created a set of APIs to allow all the information through our systems to be available to the Salesforce. As we did that, and again, as you can understand, this has been a journey, we actually did deliver in multiple program increments. The first program increment that we did was to update the case status into Salesforce. So as you see, as soon as we sort of started this API, the sales team was able to look at what exact data is coming back from SE2, where is that particular case at this point of time, the money hasn't arrived, or the signature is missing, all that data started flowing out. And the case transparency was what was available.
Yes. I failed to mention too, this enablement of the ecosystem allows us to scale this not to one client, but to every client on this broker dealer. So the ecosystem, enabling the ecosystem means that we can enable this across our entire group of businesses. So Global Atlantic started 6 years ago as a company that was born out of Goldman Sachs from a group of asset purchases. So we didn't really have the typical long insurance history. SE2 was our partner then. Because of that short status, we didn't have some of the legacy technology baggage, and we decided to use that as our to our strategic advantage. Enabling this ecosystem in this way allows us to, there were some key things that we needed to do. It needed to be repeatable, it needed to be scalable, and it needed to be something that would benefit both businesses, us and SE2. And the deal we made was, if we build this, SE2 can sell this to their other clients as well. So this whole ecosystem piece becomes important because Walter and Jane are wondering where their $500,000 is at, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable in that. And we believe that that business transparency across the entire ecosystem is going to help us sell more business. Not only that, it'll help us lead the insurance industry. So with Salesforce as that platform, it also allows us to extend out to the consumer, beyond the agent. We can actually send text messages and emails and whatnot to the end consumer if they so allow us to.
Right, and the other thing to note here is the GA operations or the Global Atlantic operations, they were not only using Salesforce, they were using a CRM solution from SE2, which was a separate CRM solution. They had to log on to SE2 system to get updates. It was like a swivel chair sort of situation. Okay, once they look at this, they say that, okay, in the SE2 system, it shows that it is NIGO, but on here it says that the money has been sent. What do I believe at this point of time? So from there, we actually did the next increment, wherein we started sending agents the alerts notification, as was discussed. And we also enabled a new channel, a distribution channel called the FedEx distribution channel.
Yeah, so agent notifications is, maybe you know the Domino's pizza track. Yeah, everyone knows what that is? Ours is real, we have it, and it actually is based on where that contract is at. It's not based on a timer. When that contract comes in, we send out a notification that says, hey, we've got your money, we've got your contract. If it goes not in good order, meaning there's a compliance problem with it, we send a notification to that agent going, hey, you didn't do your continuing education, we can't issue this contract until you finish that. Or you missed the signature on page 17, we can't fulfill this contract to get. So this proactive notification becomes the Domino's pizza tracker for the insurance and annuity industry. Now, Walter and Jane know exactly where their $500,000 is at, and they only got to call their agent to find out, and he can tell them. Eventually, we will be telling them ourselves. We're making sure our technology works the way we want it before we expose it to the consumer. But the second piece that this allowed us to do is this new business process allowed us to be scalable and bring on new customers. So a new large software provider for retirement and investment advisors is a company called InvestNet. And they have a subsidiary called FedEx, which they have a series of APIs that sells equity and debt securities today. They're adding annuity products. We immediately took what we've built here and plugged it in. the InvestNet platform. So now it's reusable, now it's scalable, now it's not just for one partner, we've got two, and then we're moving on to 3 and 4. So that was our program increments 2 and 3.
Right. And then as we move forward to the program increment 4, we actually started enabling what we call as the GA contact center. As part of that, the transition of the technology happened where they, GA ops who were not necessarily using Salesforce alone, they were using Salesforce and SE2's CRM platform. They started now using the Sales Cloud and the Service Cloud based out of Salesforce. And the other piece that also got resolved based upon this is the triggered transaction. So for example, somebody on a desktop, like Morgan Stanley or somebody, they could actually be sitting on their own desktops and be initiating transactions through APIs directly into SE2 system on behalf of their client. And in this case, the carrier being Global Atlantic.
So our teams, remember, we have a sales team, we have the third-party investment advisor, and we have our operations people. They were working from 8 different applications. Putting them together and using Mulesoft at SE2 allowed us to consolidate all those into the sales and service cloud that Salesforce offers. So Salesforce is now the Global Atlantic's operational desktop application of choice. Everything we can do there, that we need to do, we can do in Salesforce. The second piece of this is I totally forgot my point now. The FedEx.
And Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, so our clients, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, InvestNet, right? Traditionally, insurance companies would say, well, go to our portal and log in and make that change. Well, if I'm an investment advisor and I'm selling business from 15 different insurance carriers, I don't want to log into a portal, I want to use my software to do it. So the Mulesoft instance through SE2 allows us to plug that into to InvestNet, to Wells Fargo, to Morgan Stanley. It's seamless to them, they can use the software that they want, all we've got to do is a little bit of data mapping, and it's taken our integration timelines from about 9 months down to about 30 days, maybe 45. So it's really changed how we're doing it, and we think that this is only going to enable the ecosystem more so that it grows sales more.
Right, and eventually it will basically create a unified sales and service desktop. This is what is the current state, but there are some more items to go, like whether to create the IMO portal, the broker-dealer portal, the consumer portal, etc. Those are the items, but whatever be the experience on the other side, the APIs, as we saw today in the, during the keynote as well, whether it's 2019 or 2025, the APIs are going to be the real thing to enable all this experience on the other end. And that's what we have already created based on Mulesoft. We have actually also opened this as connectors on our API portal. So if any of our carriers wants to use it, they can come in and they can look at the sandbox. And as Doug was mentioning, we are not only done it for Global Atlantic, we have done it for all of the 25 customers that we have, plus the other ones that are looking at us for putting their business on. This is actually continuation of that. It is no more a system of record discussion, because typically any TPA is looked at, or BPO is looked at as a system of record. It is no more a system of record. It is enabled system of record via APIs, so that you as a carrier or the agent or your distribution channels can create the right systems of integration where and in whatever shape it makes sense.
I think the biggest thing strategically that comes out of this opportunity, in the past, companies would think about things like a portal in a very tactical sense. Oh, we need a new portal, we need a new website, we need this or that, we need to integrate with a certain customer. The API capability that Mulesoft and SE2 has provided us allows us to think strategically about what information do our customers and our clients actually need. We enable that, and we open it, and then we go tell them. And what it does is it takes the work off of our plate, and it puts it on theirs. And it allows them to come to us. It's a pull marketing strategy rather than a push marketing strategy. Because if the data's there, if you want to use it, go ahead and grab it. And what's really awesome about it is we're seeing this pick up, and I think it's working, and it's in production, and we're really excited and happy about it.
Yeah. And as we said, it didn't happen overnight. There was an initial state. We are also looking at a future state, but over a period of time, in the last year, roughly a year, we have been able to make this change, and we have done it through different deliverables. So as we said, the initial program increment, we did the case status updates. The second one, we did the agent notification, then the RIA expansion, which was the AWSNet thing, then the case comments that was synchronously going back and forth. And as we keep going, we are creating digital backlogs, we are enabling more services, and these services, as it becomes available, is changing the way the experience on the distribution channels are. This is a high-level network API diagram of how we have done it. Again, happy to answer any questions you guys may have. We did discuss what a NIGO is, right?
Not in good order.
So just making sure, and FedEx for everyone is the AWSNet platform. So these are some of the capabilities that we have created and made available on Mulesoft Anypoint Platform. Any questions?
Sure. Sorry, can you go back just one slide real quick? Thank you.
So what this is we did this agile fashion, 2-week sprint scrum, right? And we started planning our program increments probably 3 or 4 months before we actually started. So our first program increment would have been, I don't know, Q3 or Q4 of last year. And then we tied each program increment basically to quarters, because management has a hard time thinking in agile sense sometimes. So we tied them to quarters, and we could say, here's what we're doing in Q3, and here's what we're doing in Q4, and then they're happy with that. But essentially, the first thing was we had to get the case update information. So when a new piece of business, when Jane and Walter's contract comes in, what is the status of that contract? How does that thing work? Is it in good order? Is it not in good order? Have we got the money? What does it go to? And that providing that transparency back to Salesforce and Service Cloud. The next thing is enabling the notifications. So making sure that we can send a text message or an email, or even provide and I forget what the actual technical term is for, but it's basically a notification within Salesforce to say, hey, contract number 16487 just got a new status, right? So the next thing was expansion into new registered investment advisor channels. So broadening that. So once we had it working for the first one, we moved into the next ones and expanded on that. And then the next thing is more minutia about comments. So if we've got some cases that are really tough, so a lot of people will use insurance products to transfer wealth because of the tax implications. So there are communications that have to happen between the investment advisors about the customer's wishes and the carrier and SE2 as the third-party administrator. And so we're taking all of that stuff in. We now have about a year-long ongoing digital backlog. So we've got our actions built out to next year about this time, second quarter, third quarter's done almost.
Yeah.
Time flies. So hopefully that answers.
Were you able to replace your legacy systems completely?
So we didn't really, so the way it worked was we enabled the legacy systems through APIs. Now we did within SE2 in the last 3 years, we have redone our entire platform, and we did it ground up. So yes, there are certain green screen applications which had to be rewritten, and we actually have a completely API-enabled systems of record, which now have been provided a context using the Mulesoft.
And coming from phase 0 to the phase 0 right now, how long?
About a year, and again, it's still another year of work left ahead of us. But what you saw right now is where we are actually having the contact center for Global Atlantic, but it's not only about the contact center, it's about the APIs, right? So we have the APIs enabled, so tomorrow if they decide to go to another distribution channel, just like they decided to use FedEx, they can potentially use the same APIs, obviously with albeit some amount of changes, but on the experience layer, but the process layer and the system layers could potentially be reused.
So we're in program increment 5, so 5 quarters. The team is actually planning 6 right now. These next,
24th.
yeah.
Was
it next week?
Yeah, next week.
I'm losing track of my time.
Yeah.
However, the other key piece here is this is a journey. We're working our backlog. The next piece is enforced transactions. So if Walter and Jane want to pull out $50,000 because they had something come up, we're going to allow them to do that. And so the Wells Fargo advisor would go into his Wells Fargo system, be able to pull the money out, doesn't need to call us, doesn't need to talk to anybody.
Do you also provide like a public subscribe events notification and stuff?
Yeah, so we do have PubSub capabilities available. However, it depends upon what events are exposed. As we were mentioning, there are certain right now new business events exposed. We are slowly getting to the Infos events being available as part of the next release. Sure.
You take one business case and explain us how you created system API, process API, and experiential API.
Absolutely happy to do so. Can we do that in a separate place because there's too many people do? But we'll be happy to show you. Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, sure.
For you, the customer is global Atlantic and the other customers.
Yes.
How do you maintain the data integrity for global Atlantic and you make sure that you don't mess around someone else's data?
Great question.
Great question. So on our API layer, on the experience, we have created proxies for Global Atlantic as just like we have created proxies for the different other carriers. So when they actually come in, for example, Global Atlantic cannot suddenly say that, hey, I'm not Global Atlantic, I'm XYZ. We don't allow them to do that. They basically make a call to our API proxy, which then directs and sets the headers as to what they are, and then we send it into our system, which is a multi-tenant platform, and we actually set the client IDs and some other. Yeah. Okay. But great question. And by the way, they are all mutual auth. So, we basically have the mutual auth in place. Soumya over here, it will be aware that we actually do the mutual auth, IP whitelisting, the whole HTTP, and the client secret, client secret. Yeah. Any more questions behind?
So you had mentioned that you were using Mulesoft even before Global Atlantic. You exposed the API for Global Atlantic. My question is like, for how long you have been using Mulesoft, and did you hire somebody to integrate to Mulesoft? Or
Yes.
did it on your own?
Yes, thank you. So we had Deloitte as a partner when we started our integration journey in 2016. Mid of 2016 is when we evaluated a lot of enterprise service buses. We made a choice on Mulesoft at that point of time. We have had help from Mulesoft and Deloitte as we did we did our development, but we also have our in-house folks, Soumya, Ruchi, and some of the other folks that we have hired who actually had Mulesoft experience. They brought it in, so it was a mix. And from when you talk about this entire thing, this is not only done on. So the Mulesoft components were done by SE2 and their partner Deloitte, but there was other partners like IBM, Bluehole, for the Salesforce component, if that makes sense. And your other question was around what did we do with Mulesoft in 2016 and why we took 2018 to do it, was it?
No,
Okay.
but you can answer.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Well, it was primarily internal APIs at that point of time.
The other thing I'll add to that is, management at some insurance companies, they're not very technical. So it takes a long sales cycle for me to sell them on why this is important. And they don't necessarily care or want to understand the technical pieces. And so over time, we've kind of got to soften them up and get them to understand that this stuff is important. And it's going to make the business scalable and repeatable, and they don't have to build a single serving pipe to every client anymore. And that's old school, right? So.
Is there any SSO place for this integration?
Well, we have SSO. No, we are. This is APIs talking to each other. So for the API, we have mutual auth certificates. We have IP whitelisting. We have client ID, client secret, but not an SSO is only in case we have doing a web. Yeah.
Where should have
Right on time, 30 minutes.
We have to quit.
But we had fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.